Jer si milostivi čovekoljubiv Bog i tebi slavu uznosimo, Otcu i Sinu i Svetome Duhu, sada i u vekove vekova.
In a world of shadows and secrets untold, where primeval stories make the brave go cold, mighty gods on high and realms below, whispers of legends that shape each soul. And nightmarish dreams, cryptids lurking, nothing's as it seems, giants walking, angels and demons fight, only truth can bring the light. Through the echoes of time, the tales unfold, mysteries arise as the prophecies are foretold. From valiant knights to buried treasure, this podcast brings nothing but pleasure. Welcome to myth, mysteries and majesty. Study with us and don't be a travesty. Theology, mythology, fantasy and horror, from dungeons and dragons to Skyrim and Mordor. From powers haunt the evening, in gothic castles where they're screaming, wizards cast spells in their towers tonight, exploiting enigmas hidden from our sight. Archaeologists make excavations deep of the ancient tombs where pharaohs sleep. In the dust of ages we chronicles keep, storytelling's power of monsters that creep. Myth, mysteries and majesty is the place for you to learn about this haunted space. From scholarship to manuscripts of old, unlock the secrets of wisdom and gold.
Blessed Friday, everyone. I have to admit that after the last interview on Sunday with Mindy, when she was telling us about her dogman eyewitness experience, that was super creepy and super exciting in a way. I was thinking, well, can we extend it in a way, make a sequel? Of course, not with the same person. When it comes to the similar topic, namely, what about canine cryptids in the history of the church, in different mythologies, in religions, maybe even in the Bible, in the scriptures, or maybe not direct cross references, but maybe something that can make us relate when it comes to animal-like creatures, or sometimes combos, hybrids of different species, including humans. So that's when I contacted Shaun and say, hey, let's make an episode that will encompass several of these creatures or entities. So when it comes to episode 188, we're here, of course, with our dear co-host Shaun. And yeah, we prepared only 5 characters because, trust me, the list is way longer and we can make this week after week after week. But this could be one of the most interesting and most fascinating characters from history, from lore, from myths, and from legends. Now, before we start diving into the first one, that is personally my favorite one, Shaun, I want to ask you, from your studies, research, but also pop culture in general, like reading comic books, watching movies and TV shows, what were your favorite, either dog creature or a wolf-like creature?
So, I would say that my favorite wolf-like creature comes from the Underworld series. And so that's my favorite werewolf. I think that they do the best job of presenting the Lycans. Um, as far as the a dog-like creature in our reality, I would say dogman, just because they are the most interesting and the least weird. A lot of these get really weird. Um, and then I would say my favorite historical accounts of the wolf-like creature would be the Ulf the Viking berserkers that would wear wolf pelts, and some accounts have them transforming into wolf-like animals and taking on hundreds of people by themselves. So yeah, those are my top three.
They're like the mighty Gibberim of David's mighty warriors in the Old Testament. Yeah, we won't cover these, at least not tonight. So let's start with the first character. And I know that people will be, I don't know if I can use the word or if I should use the word shocked. But yes, for all the Christians, primarily Christians, so for all the religious people out there, there is Saint Christopher, one of the saints in the history of the church, an early saint, by the way, who was depicted in many icons and frescoes with the head of a dog. Now, as we will soon discover, usually skeptics and people who love art in general and history, but are from the atheistic side, they would say that there was a problem and mistranslation when it comes to these old languages, how someone mistranslated similar words, something like, for example, let's say Canaanite and Canide. So let's say there was similarity in spelling, but it's enough to omit or just misplace one character with another, and then you came with mistranslations such as Canide. So that's of course one theory. I'm not a scholar. I cannot perfectly reject it, but it's an interesting theory. So when it comes to Saint Christopher, we can see here in the background, if you guys can see my mouse, where you can see Cyrillic red letters. It says Christophoros. So that's the old Cyrillic, right? That's in Greek, Christophoros, because Saint Christopher was, or in general, Christoph or Christopher. These were the variants of the versions of the name of Jesus, right? So the title of this article, and by the way, I included all the articles in the video description, so you can go and check them by yourselves when you have time. Saint Christopher, the dog-headed saint who carried Jesus. It's an extremely interesting story, by the way. According to French philosopher Emmanuel Levinas, when we look into the face of another person, we see the word of God. The face, Levinas writes, it's a conduit for God's voice, calling us to learn, to take action, to be transformed. But what if that face is so strange that we can't recognize any commonality? What if the strangeness is so great it interferes with our ability to hear or see divinity? That dilemma is at the heart of the earliest stories about Saint Christopher, and you can see him on the left, again depicted with the dog's head. Today, Saint Christopher's name usually calls to mind images of a bearded man carrying the Christ child on his shoulders. Although the Second Vatican Council removed Christopher from the liturgical calendar when they revised it in 1969, he's still considered a saint, and people continue to wear Saint Christopher medals or dangle them from their car's rearview mirrors. He's still considered to be the patron saint of travelers. But the early stories about the saint don't mention him carrying the child across the water. Instead, they focus on one bizarre detail, and that's Christopher's face. A face so strange, it seems impossible that he's human. Although he possesses a human body, Christopher has a dog face. The first written account of Christopher, the dog-headed saint, go back to the 5th century. One early story that is named The Life of Saint Christopher comes from an ancient and probably apocryphal account of the missionary journeys of the disciples Andrew and Bartholomew. In the disciples wandering through the very edges of the known world, they encounter a dog-headed cannibal who calls himself Abominable. The author describes this individual's nose like the dog's snout, teeth like the boar's or lion's, eyes like flames, and hair spilling over his shoulder in a mane, so that his whole appearance was awful and terrifying, quote unquote. But the story goes on to say this abominable character senses within himself the Spirit of Christ. He asks these two disciples to baptize him, and then he takes the name Christopher because he says he carries Christ inside him, even though he has He had no words until now to express his awareness. Christopher then becomes the disciples' guide as they continue on their adventures. I'll stop here. Shaun, let's for a second forget his head and this legend. Think about the very beginning of the article. I think it's very beautiful. When we see someone else, we see the image of God. We see the word of God, so-called, with a small w. So we see that someone walking by us who we may not like physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, something about that. But that person is made in God's image just as we are. And this character, this abominable, didn't like himself. He was a person of wilderness. He was maybe a savage. He was a sinner, just like all of us. He was like, I feel Christ in myself. Can I be baptized? And even though I look like this, but I want to be called Christopher because, hey, maybe don't pay attention to my outward look because, hey, maybe I'm a leper. Maybe I'm disabled. I'm just giving parallels to both Jesus's world, but also our modern world. Maybe something is wrong with me. Maybe I was born like Nick Vujicic without limbs. So something is wrong with me. But don't look, brother or sister, at my disability. Don't look at my flesh, because inward, in my heart of hearts, I carry Christ. Therefore, please baptize me and give me the new name Christopher, because just like Christ, I want to be Christopher, carrying the image of Christ in me. Can we maybe start analyzing that? Because to me, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, that is really beautiful. The idea that the the outward appearances are not as important as having Christ in the inward parts. I think that that's really something that society could try to learn from today, as we have people who are so divided, specifically over what they look like externally. The with the critical race theory and stuff like that. It's really just trying to tear down at everything that St. Christopher was standing for, which is, don't look at my outside appearances. Don't judge me based on the things that make me different than you. But I want to be accepted for the things that make me the same as you, which is that I feel Christ on my inward parts. And I, yeah, to me, it's so strange how time tends to go cyclically, that that we find ourselves back here again, where we're judging people based on what they look like. Yeah, I mean, for you and I, we would. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna go there. For you and I, it's almost like we have to be the ones who are going to church and are like, yeah, even though I'm white, right? Even though you have all of this idea about how guilty I should be over the actions of my ancestors, um, how about you judge me based on Christ living in me and not what you impute to the color of my skin?
That's a good word. We got hi from Ember, our dear friend slash scholar. Hi, Ember. By the way, we just started talking about these Canid cryptids throughout the history of the church, but also different myths and religions. So first one is Saint Christopher from the 5th century. So now when Christopher, or former Mr. Abominable, accepts or receives Christ, he says, I feel Jesus's presence. I want to be called Christopher based on Christ. He's being baptized supposedly by these two disciples. A later account of Christopher's life describes him as an African named Reprobos, who was captured and forced to serve in the Roman Empire's military, since medieval Europeans consider Africa to be a quote-unquote land of cannibals and dog-headed peoples. Man, that was horrible. The Europeans who first encountered Reprobos view him with fear and loathing. Even though he is hated and persecuted, however, Reprobos rebels against the Roman military's cruelty to Christians. He runs away, and when he converts to Christianity, his spear sprouts roots and leaves. As in the other story, he takes the name Christopher because he says he bears Christ within. In this account, Christopher does much good in the world, bringing Christ within him wherever he goes until he's eventually martyred for his faith. I also want to stop here. I know it's not. I know these are like the stories of two different Christophers. Yet I wanna take a very short break and just meditate and ponder of this man's virtues. Praise God that he didn't reject Christ because of how he was being dealt, and seen as this and that by Europeans, right? So once when he converted, he had this empathy, and he wanted to be called Christopher because just like the former one, he says, "Well, I bear Christ within." And it says in the last sentence of this paragraph that Christopher did so much good in the world, bringing Christ within him wherever he went. And so he was eventually martyred for his faith. So even though we don't know so much about Reprobus, I have to say that I immediately fell in love with his short bio because he was receiving so much hatred and evil, and he chose not to go that way. So that's why he bore Christ in a worthy way, right? Like you were worthy to take the Mjolnir. Well, you're even worthy now in a way, because what is Mjolnir compared to Christ? Nothing. So now you can wear the image of Christ, the gospel of Christ. You can wear even the name of Christ because you're now going representing Christ, and he died as a martyr. Any comment on that?
Well, one thing that I would probably want to clarify for our audience is that, when they say that they believe that Africa was full of, dog-headed cannibals, I think it's important that we understand that they did not consider Egypt or Ethiopia to be Africa. Africa was just considered West Africa because they knew of Egypt and Ethiopia because they interacted with them going through that other side, right? So, but West Africa was and is still today a very violent place. And the Europeans didn't actually have any real contact with the West Africans until they started looking for another trade route to get to India, because of the collapse of the Mongolian Empire, and the Silk Road ended up becoming basically innavigable because of bandits. And the Somalians uh, basically own that whole eastern corridor through piracy, and so the only way that they were going to try to get around was to go over through or around the Horn of Africa, which had never been done before. And they were making stops along the way to sell and trade wares. The only thing that West Africa had to trade, the main thing that they traded, was slaves. That was what they had to trade. This was a very it's a very rural area geographically, and just that's the kind of people that it produces. And
I mean, it
so
still is. Look at
yeah,
all the Christians being martyred.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So when we look at this, we should, on one hand, say, yeah, okay, maybe there's a little bit of racism involved there, but you got to remember, these people, they were interacting with Ethiopians, they were interacting with Egyptians, and they didn't say this stuff about them. Maybe there was some real violent, terrible things that were happening there, that when the navigators from Europe went to go and see, they were saying, "Oh, this is still happening. Like, this is not a good place to be." Um, so yeah, lest anybody think that it's just racism, I'm sure there is some implicit racism in here, but they're saying a lot more than just, "Oh, black people bad." Like, these people, they traditionally have been isolated. I mean, they're separated from the rest of Africa by the Sahara Desert, and they're so far west of Egypt. Like, there's this little outcropping of people, and yeah, it traditionally has always been very hard life, and it produces very violent. Hard lives produce violent people. I mean, look at the Vikings trying to survive on a glacier. You end up becoming a very violent type of person. So, yeah, just to clarify for our audience.
Um, are you familiar with the one of the ways the Vikings used to torture and kill their enemies? They would open their back, and take their lungs out, and that was called, forgot, angel wings or something. I saw that in the Vikings TV show.
The
That was
blood eagle.
horrible.
Yeah, the blood
Blood
eagle.
eagle. Oh my
Yeah.
god,
Yeah, well,
that was horrible.
they would open up the skin and they would take an axe and they would crack open the rib cage and remove the ribs, and then they would take the lungs and fold them up on the shoulder, so when you were to take a breath, the lungs would flutter like wings. And so they called it the blood eagle. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, let's go to nicer topics. Um Okay, so he was martyred for his faith. Finally, we come to a story that describes Christopher literally bearing the Christ child on his shoulders. This account tells of a foreign lord whose wife, though a heathen, prays to Mary for a child. She becomes pregnant with a son. As an adult, the son, named Opherus, not only has the head of a dog, apparently a common feature in this land, but he's also monstrously large. As he wanders the land, he encounters a Christian hermit who teaches him about Christ. So he outwardly appeared as a monster, but inside, he looked like a nice, gentle, humble boy. Now converted, Opherus will still not fast or pray, since these Christian practices seem alien to him. He does, however, agree to use his physical strength and height for God's sake by ferrying people across a raging river. One night, as he carries a small child on his shoulders through the dark water, the load of his shoulders grows so heavy that he staggers beneath its weight. "Who are you?" he gasps to the child on his back. "I'm Christ," the child replies, "the creator and redeemer of the world. From now on, your name will be Christopher, for you have borne the Christ across the water." Then the Christ child tells Christopher to plant his staff in the ground, and by morning it grows into a fruit-bearing tree. When the people of the land turn to Christianity as a result of this miracle, the king is infuriated and throws Christopher in prison. The king sees only a monster who must be, quote, abolished from memory and from life, end quote. Christopher's dog head is cut off and he becomes a martyr for Christ. Man, I knew the beginning, well, the most of the story, I just didn't know how he ends. In each of these stories, something about Christopher's dog face challenges people. It becomes the catalyst for a chain reaction of community transformation. In one of the stories, a woman sees Christopher's face and runs to tell the others in her village of this quote-unquote wonder. She returns with a vast crowd, and she also gazes, well, they all gaze at Christopher's strange face, and then somehow they come to Christ. That's very interesting. Gazing at the face of God, or someone who represents God, and then you're drawn almost like I don't want to use the word hypnotized, because that's usually associated with magic and with at least magic on stage, right? But like, there's something about these gaze when you look at the face of divinity and you can't turn your head off. You're like, I just surrender, God. Like, you're so above me and you're so beyond me, and I'm so little and insignificant. And in order for me to matter, I have to be embraced by you, and I need to embrace you. So here I am. Do whatever you want with my life. That's how I would envision this this moment of life that is like the most important moment of your life. It's like the literal transformation of your soul. Okay, I'll stop here for a second. I want to ask you, in a pastoral way, how can we, seeing all these martyrs dying for Christ, if they had dog's face or not, that's now less relevant. Yeah, it's a cute story with, someone like that being changed by God and then serving God and then unfortunately dying for Christ. But again, how does it help us to see others, as Amber was also saying in the chat, like as equal to us? Like, is my brother and sister coming from another continent equal to me? Of course. Even though if they're not Christians, are they equal to me? Of course. Are those who, on the other hand, like in Nigeria right now, are dying for Christ, are they worthy double honor? I would say, of course. praise God for those people, and he will come to avenge them because they're not renouncing their faith when they're being slaughtered. So what is this ending of all these three different Christopher stories with all these three different sorts of I don't want to say legend, but of folk tales? They're coming with three different people called the same name, and also having this type of head, and dying as martyrs, yet being unique characters. What is this telling us in our role in the church, but also when it comes to people who are not part of the church yet, but they're our neighbors?
Well, I mean, if you were to ask a sociologist, they would probably tell you, in the words of Napoleon from Animal Farm, all humans are equal, but some humans are more equal than others. Which, yeah, that's where we're at. But I think that it comes down to, you just have to see God in those people. And maybe the only bit of God that you see is just that they're made in his image. Like, maybe they don't have any godly character at all. So maybe they're just in his image and have no likeness to God. But I mean, they're still worthy of respect. I mean, a fetus is made in the image of God and has no likeness to God. I mean, but yet we still advocate for the abolition of abortion. So I think that any human that is human, that's made in the image of God, should be treated with that same respect, regardless of where they come from or what they look like. Um, as far as the three different people, the of the Saint Christopher legend, um, I think that what happens is good stories get retold, and so you end up with stories picking up different elements, and that's okay, because they're taking on characteristics of the people in the places that they're told. And so I think that a legend, as it adapts and it goes through and it changes, maybe it becomes more true, in the sense that maybe it's not historically grounded in its new form, but yet it's playing on the customs and the ideas in the people that it's being told to, and so it has more truth to grab hold of than just a historical fact.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're almost done with the first article. It says Christopher does not reveal Christ despite his strangeness. He reveals Christ because of his strangeness. So I think Amber would agree with us that this is good news for me. So personally, good news for me, because I can still reveal Christ despite of my strangeness. So after Christopher's conversion, he does not lose his dog face. In some stories, he does not even adopt Christian customs, and yet the Christ child chooses him. According to Levinus, right, the person from the beginning of the article, when we dare to truly look into the face, into a face not like our own, we take the first step toward changing the world. Healthy community grows out of our willingness to encounter differences without being threatened by them. The other remains other, bringing gifts to the community that were lacking. And I'll stop here because I also want to check with another article that speaks of the same character.
While you're doing that, I want to respond to Amber before she burns the internet down. She says, "Where is it written that the unborn aren't fully image bearers?" Oh, I take exception to that. Nope. Maybe she heard when I said that they are not. They don't share the likeness of God, and what I mean by that is that they don't share the completeness. They're not full maturity, but they're completely made in the image of God. And that's the reason that we're for the abolition of abortion, is because they are in the image of God. So I just wanted to clarify that I fully believe that an unborn human at the moment of conception is entirely made in the image of God. By likeness, I just mean that they don't have that completeness that we're striving towards in maturity. So that.
Oh yeah, I think all of us, dozen of people who work on the podcast, all of us believe that.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure she wasn't hearing me say something that I wasn't saying, and that's why I wanted to respond to her before she burns the internet down.
She'll burn just her laptop. She's asking you, so are you separating the image from the physical form?
Um, I don't know that I am. I might be. I might be saying that the image is something else that maybe is placed in the human, but I don't know how I would articulate that. I would just say that the image is in our humanness.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't read Carmen Innes's books on the image of God. I heard it from everyone. They're like one of the best primers um, on the topic. But I would dare to say that the image of God has nothing to do with our physical form.
Right. So I wouldn't say that somebody who is born without limbs images God less. I also wouldn't say that it's some sort of mental faculty or capacity because somebody who's born without higher levels of cognition isn't any less in the image of God. So that's why I say I think it is something to do with our humanness. But I don't know where I would uh, really go with that. And I'm sure that there's an entire minefield that you could step in here with different philosophies where, oh well, you can't say that for X and Y reason. But yeah, if I were to be pressed, I would say it doesn't rest solely in the physical, but maybe maybe there's something about being genetically human that that's where the image is.
Yeah, maybe we should make an episode just on the image of God and invite Carmen and maybe someone else and just combine different scholarly sources and just see different theories and ideas and put them all together. But even was it Heiser or I don't know whose book I was reading recently that was going into all of those ideas that different scholars have. Like, what does it mean to image God? Does it mean is it related to your function? Is it related to your mental and cognitive abilities, like you were saying, intellect? Doesn't mean does it have to do with something about you being self-aware? Does it have to do with your I don't know, your tasks that you may be doing given by God? It's like it can be all of that, but it could be also more. So different scholars, they have different ideas. What does it mean to bear the image of God? But I think I would still bear the image of God regardless of my shape and nationality and race and stuff like that. In that context, I was saying I don't think that this my personal body would matter, because if I was born as someone else, it would still be 100% image of God. So, but yeah, that's actually an interesting topic. I don't own any of Carmen Innes's books. I think it's Ines, maybe it's Emis or Imis. I'm sorry for butchering her name because I'm not familiar so much with her work, but maybe we should make an episode like that. Okay, so let's continue with the second article that continues talking about Saint Christopher. Scholarly studies on the origin of Saint Christopher are available, but in these one must endure that usual homum conclusions that Christian tradition develops basically as a series of misunderstandings, confusions, and fantastical exaggerations. Modern scholars seem to believe that coherent meaning and analogy cannot exist without a kind of mechanical cause-effect historical development. When they see the overlays occurring in tradition between the term Cainite, son of Cain, or Canaanite, giants of Canaan, and Canaanite, dogman, these scholars immediately enlighten us on the mistaken transcriptions of those cave-dwelling Cro-Magnons of the Middle Ages. Yet these same scholars remain blind to how profound and intuitive some of these relations can be. And this is what we mentioned also in the first article, even though this segment wasn't there, but I was just mentioning how usually agnostic scholars would saying that this was a linguistic problem and mistranslation when it comes to Saint Christopher, that he had nothing of animal type of or cryptid type of a body or nature, that this was simply a linguistic problem, and maybe it was. Yet still, I love those stories of him being different, yet bearing the image of Christ, being accepted, and also living for Christ, dying for Christ. When it comes to iconography of monsters, The use of dog-headed men in iconography is not limited to the icon of Saint Christopher. They also appear most commonly in images of Pentecost, prominently in Armenian manuscripts, but also in Western images. Oh, he's here at the bottom with another saint. Man, this is beautiful. Look at this icon.
That's really neat.
Yeah, and you can tell it's old by the way of the way it was made, the material, the choice of colors, the way it was drawn. It's really beautiful. It says the dog-headed men are seen as the farthest race present at Pentecost because they are the farthest in some Armenian images. They appear in the center of the door, or else they appear alone, representing a distilled image of the ultimate foreigner. There are some other images. For example, a well-known image where dog-headed men are represented as the barbarian enemies who threaten Christ. Sometimes they're seen as one of the races encountered in the mission of the apostles. Oh, I see here. So here there are many of them, and these dogmen are not friends of Christ or Christians. They're the supposed savages or enemies. Yeah, and we see ISHS for Jesus Christos. So this is actually supposedly Christ himself being surrounded by these warriors, and this is coming from a 15th century depiction. It's very interesting. I would like to know the background of that image. Finally, dog-headed men appear in the story of Saint Mercurius, a warrior saint whose father was eaten by two dog-headed men, later converted by this saint. This dog-headed man's savage nature could be unleashed by Saint Mercurius on the enemies of the Roman Empire in a way analogous to how Romans and later Christians used barbarians in their own wars. The most obvious examples of these is how they recently converted Germanic barbarians stopped the advance of Islam into Europe, or how the recently converted Scandinavian Prince of Kiev provided the Emperor of Constantinople with a personal Varangian guard or Varangian guard. You know, I just have to say, as a non-Orthodox or not Catholic person, I appreciate so much frescoes because they were the way that the people of, well, not just in the ancient times, in medieval times, who were not literate, they would be able to see these things, these images, and understand different gospel stories, but also non-gospel stories. They were like, oh yeah, I know this story. I see this depicted, beheaded person in the lower right corner. My grandma, or my mom, my dad, they told me this story, and that will be passed from generation to generation. They wouldn't have a copy of Bible in their home. They'll be poor, but they'll go to church, and these images would represent something very important in the way they'll be growing up and later maturing and having their own families. They'll be like, oh yeah, don't forget God. Remember how he was faithful. Remember how he was fighting for you. Remember how he parted the Red Sea. Remember how he resurrected. Well, that's the same God that is with us now. So that's why I appreciate so much frescoes, because it served not just as art, but also, spreading the gospel through the way of all these images and depictions. Any additional comment on this? Yeah,
they were the original flannel graphs. I don't know if you know what a flannel graph is.
Is it that thing when you change it and you can see on the wall what appears?
No. So in Bible studies they have these little cutouts. They're felt cutouts, and so they could use them on this flannel graph, and so you put them on and they stick to it, and they use that to tell a Bible story. So so that they have little cutout felt figures, and so that's in most Bible stories from like the 90s, maybe the early 2000s. That's what most of the kids would have gone to, as a Bible study where they were using the flannel graph to explain Bible stories.
I'm just enjoying like 100 live comments that I missed while I was reading the article. Now the whole gang is there. All these pagan dog-like cryptids, they converted to Christ, so God removed their dog heads, and now they're just regular beings because they're made in the image of God, right? I love all of you guys too. Wow. Okay, let's continue with this. By the way, I so appreciate this fresco. This iconographic example shows the dog-headed man as representing barbarian foreigners par excellence. Those living on the edge of the world, the edge of humanity itself. They are cannibal, savage, hybrid creatures who later will be conceived as descendants of Cain, fallen to a monstrous state. The giant Canaanite of Catholic images, who has now often integrated into Orthodox iconography, though less visually shocking for having lost his monstrous face, signifies the same reality as dog-headed man. The giants in the Bible and in Christian tradition are often also interpreted as descendants of Cain and monstrous cannibal barbarians who, by their excessive bodies, represent the extreme of corporality itself. You know what? It's a lengthy article. And because we've been talking about the image of God and stuff, we already hit like 40 minutes. I'll stop here. And again, all these articles are included in the description. But I want to add something to what we talk about the image of God. Just as Saint Christopher, he comes to Christ, he's bearing Christ in himself. His image doesn't change, but he still serves God. He's loved by God. He dies as a martyr for God. Beautiful story, right? But on the other hand, imagine if one of these so-called monsters, God saved them. Monsters we've been reading in the last paragraph or two. Imagine if God can change them so that even their physical appearance is not anymore so repellent to some people. Not in a way that God has to do it in order for someone to be liked excuse me, and accepted by others, but in a way that inside and inner transformation can bring light, smile, hope, love, that literally your face, you can see former drug addicts coming to Christ. Man, it's like new people in general. Their teeth look much better, their face, their skin looks much better, their hair looks much better, their eyes, they're glowing with a different way. So God is transforming so-called quote-unquote monsters, including us, our monstrosities, into something bright and beautiful, because he's the only one who has power to do that through the gospel. So I'm like, how this is a beautiful complete opposite of the same story of cryptids and monsters throughout the history of the church. And again, God does not have to change your visual appearance, but he can. And that visual appearance can be part of your testimony. It's like, man, like you're shining like Moses's face on the mountain. Well, thank you so much. It's because I'm little Christopher. I bear Christ in my chest. But yeah, I'll stop here because this article, I think it will take us at least 30 minutes to analyze. It's a very lengthy, but a very good one. So I'll just stop here before we switch to Anubis. Any additional comments?
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say that, you're right, that God can bring healing to somebody's outward appearances. So Amber and Nico, God can provide you with a beard. It would maybe look a little less handsome on Amber, but she could join the beard community. Secondly,
Wait. Have you watched the Rings of Fire, the latest abomination of the Tolkien's TV show? I mean the dwarf women, they have beards.
Yeah,
so if Amber converts into their tribe, maybe she'll get beard naturally growing.
So I boycotted that from the very beginning. Because
but maybe it's not from the trailer or posters or images.
I haven't seen anything of it, and anything that I have, I've suppressed that
Continue
memory.
talking, I'll show it to you.
Okay. And then so secondly, when it's talking about these monstrous humans being descendants of Cain, I had just come across this this idea that Cain, one of the ideas about the mark that he received was that his body was now covered in hair. And the Book of Jasher, which is not original, but I think that it draws from Midrash tradition, is the idea that Lamech killed Cain accidentally, and that's the reason that he's telling his wives that Cain, anyone who kills Cain would be avenged sevenfold. He'll be avenged 77-fold, and it's because he killed Cain thinking that he was some sort of monster. What is this? That I don't see a
That's
beard,
Amber when it comes to Christ.
but I don't see a beard. Where's the beard?
Well, I mean, it's a smaller image. I can see. Okay, let me try to enhance. I don't know if you can see, but yeah, I can see fully on my computer. Yeah, she has all the way here. See, where's my mouse? Right here.
That's not even a beard. That's just peach hair. Like, come
Well,
on.
but she's a lady, so well, hey, you have to be graceful towards Amber. She can grow a full beard overnight.
I guess we got to have grace and charity towards people. Yeah.
I think Amber will fit well in the TV show.
She's gonna kill you.
That's okay. She's just gonna send less love online. Okay, Shaun, let's talk about Anubis. So maybe you want to start reading this article, and then I'll be scrolling for you.
Brother, I'm on my phone. I can't even see that.
You can't, man. You didn't go to school. That's actually your excuse. You can't read. You need a foreigner to read English. Okay,
that's
fine,
correct.
I knew it the whole time. So you just like Amber, you can fit in this new TV show.
We all need a Serb in our lives. Okay, you're
Because
just
shared
one
names with
assigned to
God.
me.
Like Christopher, I'm gonna carry you, Shaun. Okay, so Anubis, Egyptian dog god, is considered the god of death and is one of the most powerful deities in ancient Egyptian symbols. Ancient texts refer to him as the god of mummification, embalming, the cemetery, tombs, the afterlife, and the underworld. It's funny because you were mentioning the underworld earlier. Archaeologists identified the African golden wolf as the sacred animal of Anubis. Their roles change in different contexts. Thus, we can note that the first dynasty described is a protector of tombs. Later, the ancient Egyptians also recognized it as an embalmer. Anubis is the god of death and mummification and the protector of the tombs. He's represented with a jackal head and black skin. Man, like he looks like Doberman almost, right?
Yeah, just like a Doberman.
Mm. Anubis could be represented in an animal form or in mixed form, with the body of a man and the head of an animal, and was among the most important deities in ancient Egypt. The animal that symbolized Anubis has been identified variously as a wild dog, an Egyptian wolf, or more traditionally as a jackal. But it is actually impossible to say with certainty what species he belonged to because of the physical characteristics that distinguish him belong somewhat to all three species. It seems, however, that the Egyptians had no interest in specifying its nature precisely, and studies conducted on mummies found in necropolises of animals sacred to Anubis have revealed a mixture of various canine species. That's actually interesting. I love those archaeological findings. Moreover, the black color that characterizes it has no reference whatsoever to the physical reality of the animal, but falls within the symbology of colors. Black is for us the color of night and death, but in Egypt it was above all that of regeneration and rebirth. Usually, ancient Egyptian history depicted the god in a seated position in black. Okay, I'm gonna skip this. The origins of the Egyptian dog god Anubis. Yeah, and this is a depiction we've been seeing. I mean, these are famous throughout the world. It's this depiction that you can even see in textbooks when it comes to Egyptian mythology. Initially, Anubis was the most powerful son of Ra, the sun god, who later became powerful in the underworld, being the preeminent deity of the early Egyptian dynasties. Previously, Anubis, Egyptian dog god, had been considered the son of Ra and Hesat, associated with Hathor. But after being assimilated into the Osiris myth, he was considered to be the son of Osiris and his sister-in-law. What is this word? Nephthys? I don't know. Amber will kill us, but she'll have to be graceful to us tonight. He's the Egyptian deity who first appears on tomb walls and was first invoked to ask for protection from the dead. A popular image of Anubis is that of a man standing or kneeling with the head of a jackal, holding the golden balance on which the heart of the deceased was weighed against the pen of truth. His daughter is Quebehut or Quebechet, based on spelling and pronunciation, who brings fresh water to the souls of the dead in the hall of truth and consoles the newly deceased. Anubis's association with Nephthys, known as the quote-unquote friend of the dead, and Quebehut emphasizes his enduring role as protector of the dead and guide to the souls in the afterlife. Okay, so now we're dealing with sections that we can skip. Where does the name Anubis comes from? So people can check more on that. Epithets and names of the Egyptian dog god of Anubis has so many meanings, including Lord of the Necropolis, Lord of the Sacred Land, Lord of the Sacred County, Lord of the Caves, Lord of the Embalmers, the Lord of Nubia, the one who eats his father. Man, talking about rebellion, divine rebellion. Okay, and now we'll be dealing with facts about this Anubis dog. Shaun, I know that you are well versed in many mythologies. What is your view of this dog god?
Well, he's the god of the ritual of embalming. He I guess he saw fit to not preserve the brain, so he must not have been that smart, because in the jars they don't preserve the brain. Uh, everything else. Um, I'm surprised it didn't say the god of the cheese tax, because as we all know, when you get out cheese, you got to pay the cheese tax to your dogs. Uh, so he's not the god of the cheese tax or the butt scratches. Um, yeah, you know, it's kind of weird. I think that as you're reading, Anubis kind of started off as this more, um, like a feared god of the underworld, and then as soon as he gets pulled into the Osiris myth, he becomes like the celebrated god, and so it kind of shows how culture and religion are so closely combined, and they affect one another, because once you start having this, yes, Anubis, god of the belly rubs. Yeah, yeah, he's a good boy. Who's a good boy? Anubis is. Hey, wait, isn't he is it oh my wait, pause. He's the one who weighs the heart against the golden feather, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's the good boy who determines who was a good boy. He was the first one to ask the question, who's a good boy?
Yeah, that's why
That's
he can
fitting.
decide. That's why he can decide who can be saved or not. You better love dogs in this lifetime, Shaun. I know you do. You have like only gazillion dogs at home
Yeah. No, I have many dogs.
and no cats. Hallelujah. Okay, no offense to the cat owners. Anubis and the waiting of the heart. So here we are coming to the question that Shaun just asked. Only after the body had been mummified and placed inside the sarcophagus and the tomb closed and sealed did the soul's journey to the afterlife begins. It was a journey fraught with dangers and trials to overcome, for going to the afterlife was not easy and one had to earn it. The Egyptians were among the first peoples to think that after death, the deeds done in life stand before the deceased like a mountain. Impossible to erase them, impossible to make them go unnoticed. Whew. Okay, the theological side of me wants to stop here because I mean no disrespect. But just can you imagine if all of your deeds, Shaun, or all of my deeds would stand before Christ and that will determine my salvation? And again, I fully embrace James. I fully embrace James, especially chapter 1. We need to do good deeds for Christ. But oh my God, how many sins of omission and commission we bear with us. Imagine coming with Christ. It's like my pile of good deeds. I don't know if it can be sorted from here to the ceiling, but my bad things, again, committing and omitting, things, it's like I think they'll go over the roof easily. So imagine being a part of a movement, cult, sect, religion, mythology, anything, where hey, if you want to cross the river, if you want to enter the gate, if you want to go to the promised land, call it whatever you want in all of these different lores and traditions and legends, man, you have to be basically like the dog god. You have to be the good boy. I'm like, man, I haven't been a good boy even as a Christian always many times. So I just want to say that that dread standing before your deity, whoever your deity is, and trying to say, hey, look, my life, I deserve to come there. I'm like, I don't dare to say that to Christ ever, ever. Even as a Christian, I don't care how much I can pray or read or recite stuff and do the good stuff. I also see so many deadness and bad things in me. And I'm not even going into Calvinism and stuff like, no one is good and stuff like that. I'm just talking about myself. So I'm always reminded freshly, like, praise God for Jesus, and I just shut up. I don't know how utter. I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to describe it. I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand, Jesus. Your incarnation. That's like, it's so mystical. You created us, and then through your creation you came, and because of that I can be loved, I can be selected and elected, I can be saved. And not just that, but you stand before Father because of me, because of Shaun and Amber and Troy and Joshua Davidson and all of our friends in the live chat, but also including for me. Who am I tell often people who are not believers, listen, I don't think I'm better than you for a second. I don't think because I'm a Christian, I go to church, I pray, I read the Bible, or have podcasts, that I'm better than you. And that's not just a saying. I know myself. I know my heart. It's not beautiful. It's not. So I just want to say, imagine that dread being part of any movement where you're like, man, I'm weighing like my good and my bad thing. Oh, I'm just hoping. It's almost like playing a lottery. Throwing the dice, will you get the good number? But Jesus is my good number. If I throw it, I can always get Jesus. Woo, this should be a sermon. What would be your pastoral message or comfort, Shaun? Like when we come to Jesus, and what can I bring to you, God? I have nothing to give to you. Take just me, and that's it.
Yeah, it, I can't imagine having my deeds have to stand before me, and testify as to whether or not I'm a good person, because I know better than anyone that I'm not, right? I mean, it's all relative, but I mean, objectively, I know that I'm not a good person. And so when if you were to have your deeds exposed, it would be like, I don't know if you've seen those uh astronomical comparison videos where it's like the moon, and then it zooms out, and the earth, and then it zooms out, and it's like the sun, and then it zooms out, and like the biggest star, and so it's like, I
And,
mean,
and Earth cannot be even seen anymore. Not just Earth, even the sun. You think sun is huge, but compared to these massive dwarfs, like especially those white dwarfs, nothing. You're nothing.
yeah, yeah, and so then you get to like the supermassive black holes that are like the size of galactic centers. It's crazy. So yeah, I would imagine that like my bad deeds are like the size of the sun, and my good deeds are maybe the size of a beach ball. Um, so yeah, I definitely don't have enough to balance it out. And so yeah, you just kind of have to be thankful for Christ that I don't have to try to make the scales balance, because I don't have enough lifetimes to try to live a perfect life to try to balance that out. There's just no way.
Yeah. Amen. The last test that the soul faced was the most important and final one, because if it was not passed, the dead person would be denied access to the afterlife of the blessed, and would instead find himself in a place of eternal damnation, a kind of hell. The trial was an actual process in heaven and was called weighing of the heart. The Greeks called it psychostasia, weighing of the soul. The soul of the deceased was led by the god of death, Anubis, by the hand inside a hole called the hole of double truth, quote unquote, where the process would take place. In the center was a two-pan scale, a kind of lie detector. In front of it, the god Osiris enthroned, and as his side, 42 deities who constituted the jury. Man, this was like a divine council. But seriously, this was a divine council in Egyptian pantheon, and like, man, they were like giving those hammers, and they'll be voting if you're saved or not. This is worse than playing a lottery, honestly. Egyptian god Anubis was in charge of checking that the scales were perfectly calibrated and working properly, and then proceeded to weigh them. On one plate, he would place an ostrich feather or a statue of the goddess Mat, wearing an ostrich feather on her head. That was a symbol of truth and justice. And on the other plate, the heart of the deceased, representing the feelings of the dead person, his goodness or badness. If the heart, the feelings weighed more than the feather, the truth, the dead man's souls would be condemned to go among the damned. If, on the other hand, the heart weighed like a feather, the dead person would go to the paradise of the god Osiris, since truth is as light as a feather. Well, I wouldn't like to go with Osiris anyway, so I'm going with Jesus. So that will be the way of me escaping divine counsel in Egyptian pantheon. Anubis, companions of souls, statues and paintings of this Egyptian god are very often encountered inside the tombs of kings and nobles, since as guardians of the necropolis, he had to defend the tombs from thieves, evildoers, and any demonic presence. A splendid sculpture of Anubis comes from the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun and was placed to guard the case of the canopic jars, the vessel that contained the entrails of the dead in so-called treasure chamber. I have to skip a lot because we still have like a few more characters. But yeah, basically dogs were seen well, I want to say I don't want to say like in Hindu religion cows, because cows were, I think, way too sacred. But I also see dogs as being seen highly esteemed in Egypt. I don't know what is their view today, but I mean, this was one of their deities that was dealing with justice. So if you wanted to be good, you had to do good things, so to please this deity with dog head. Any final thoughts on Egyptian mythology and pantheon and their divine council before we switch to an Eastern European mythological dog-headed creature?
I think it's interesting that Osiris's divine council met in the underworld, whereas God's divine council meets in the heavens. I think that's pretty telling. Secondly, just a takeaway here, Anubis was the first good boy who asked who's a good boy.
Man, you need to talk more. My throat is dying here because, hey, we have to open a like an account for donations for Shaun's computer or laptop, so he can read and I can rest my throat. Yeah, we
Yes.
need a new campaign. Okay, so we're done with this dude, and now we're switching to two very short articles when it comes to the same dude, and he's from my country. He's from actually the whole Balkans. Psoglav. What it means? Well, it basic glove is or glava is head, and this is dog. So it basically means an entity that has dog's head. Dog head might, let me see, just, yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Okay. Dog head might sound like a rather cruel insult, but for the psoglav, it was a badge of honor. By the way, it's very, 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 very hard to find articles in English that are longer than just few sentences. I don't know why, but I didn't want to find one in Serbian that I have to translate. So it is what it is. And because psoglav became popular in not just Balkan and Eastern European myth, but it also became involved in some, I think, D&D games and campaigns and things of that sort. So it became more popular. So they started involving him more in pop culture. Classification will be, I think, because of the type of the D&D games that he's involved. So he's a type of a mythical beast and a cryptid. Okay, I'm not reading this because supposedly these stories come between 17th and 19th century. Of course, it comes from the Balkans. Died cannibalistic. Doghead might sound like a rather cruel insult, but for him, it was a badge of honor. These creatures from the Balkans are quite the... Okay, how do you pronounce this? Do you pronounce it chimera?
Chimera.
Chimera, okay. Chimera. With the body of a human, the head of a dog, the legs of a horse, and a single eye on their forehead. They're a terrifying sight to behold. So they're like Cyclops, except that Cyclops is not partially dog. To add to this fierce image, they're known to wear armor and wield human weapons such as swords, axes, and maces. While this might suggest they would be a perfect fit for any army, the psoglav or doghead actually prefer to dwell in dark caves and mines, especially those filled with gemstones. Man, these are like relatives of the dwarves. Known for their cannibalistic tendencies, approaching one of these beasts is highly unadvisable. They're reportedly so ravenous that eating the flesh of the living is not enough. If they cannot find a living victim, they will dig up graves and eat whatever corpses they can find. This gruesome behavior has been confirmed by multiple sources. Multiple sources by who? It's just a legend. It's not like we have eyewitness reports. So exercise extreme caution if you ever consider recruiting them. Oh yeah, because I can go on Temu and buy up Psoglav. Oh my God, who wrote this? Who wrote this article?
I got mine on Etsy. So
yeah. Just like those witches that people recruit on Etsy, we can hire dogmans over there.
That's right.
Makes sense because I don't know if Etsy serves for anything good, holy, and noble in this life. Maybe.
Well, so as long as you have those begging strips, they listen pretty good. But you got to have the bacon strips. That or get the ones with the cheese in them. They listen to that.
I don't know what's up with you and cheese. Okay, let me open another short article when it comes to these dog-headed dudes from Eastern Europe. I cannot. There's no X button, so I cannot turn this annoying purplish area at the bottom. It is what it is. So this was how this author depicted Psoglav, or the dog-headed man. He was digging graves and eating the corpses of people who died. And again, it's an entity that has only one eye. I have encountered a Psoglav, and plurality would be, I guess, Psoglavs, even though in Serbian that sounds hysterical, in a number of fantasy novels, and they always seem as very formidable opponents to the good guys, the knights, the soldiers, stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I encountered them years ago. I was like, man, who are these monsters? Who are these demons? Psoglavs are monstrous predators native to the plane of shadow. Psoglavs have an affinity for the undead, treating smaller and weaker undead as snacks and minions. What is this? Kowtowing. I never heard about that word. Kowtowing. To more powerful creatures such as leeches and nightshades. They delight in spreading panic and will terrorize a community for days before striking, digging up graves in order to consume corpses and loot burial goods. They're avaricious creatures who hoard gemstones with fervor and will take foolish risks in order to obtain especially fine specimens. A psoglav, or a dogman, is a cunning adversary and rarely fights fair. They use their natural abilities to weaken and harass opponents before closing in for the kill. Most dogmans do not hesitate to flee if the battle turns against them, and may attempt to abduct a weakened adversary and whisk them away to the plane of shadow as a parting insult. Psoglavs are not especially cooperative creatures, and combat with multiple psoglavs often turns into competitions between the monsters to slay more opponents. A psoglav stands 12 feet tall and weighs about 1,000 pounds. Okay, and also what I want to say that reading from this couple of articles, they don't seem very intelligent. So their IQ is very low. That's why they're physically very tall. I don't think you ever heard about these entities. What will be your impression from these two articles?
Other than the fact that it just has one eye, I mean, based on the depictions, it kind of looks like what we encounter as Dogman, right? And it even has the backwards legs, the ones that look like a dog's leg. Um, so yeah, it looks like the American idea of Dogman, just ours have two eyes instead of one.
So basically, you Americans stole another tradition, another legend, and just called it, "Oh, this is ours." Like food, you took hamburger and French fries or pizza, and now it's yours. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, so I think that maybe the Soglovs are particularly violent, and in America we just have better healthcare, and so they are able to keep both of their eyes instead of losing one to violence. But I don't know how they're gonna, be able to afford it because although we may have good healthcare, it's very expensive.
Yeah, they would let the poor dogman die in America because they don't have health insurance. Shame on them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
They get to keep both eyes, but it costs them an arm and a leg.
okay, Shaun, would you prefer us going with when it comes to the last two characters? Would you prefer us to go with the Rougarou or with King Lycaon?
So am I choosing which one we do first, or are we just gonna do one or the other?
We'll do both, and my
Oh,
throat will explode. But which one you care which one we cover first?
I don't really care, but the Rougarou is it's American, right? It comes from the
Oh, that's
Creole.
going last. No, that's going last. If it's
Oh,
American,
okay.
it's going last.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Fine, we're gonna cover it now, showing that I love everyone because everyone is made in God's image, even Shaun.
That's right.
Okay, Rougarou, the swamp werewolf, and you can't read this at all.
Okay, I will I'm gonna turn off my camera so I can get super close and then I can read it. All right.
Okay.
Parents raising families in the swamplands of Louisiana don't scare their children with stories of Dracula or the boogeyman. Instead, they spin tales of the Rougarou, a once human, wolf like, shape shifting beast who walks on two legs. It looms over us, somewhere between 7 and 8 feet tall, depending on whose tail it is, and it eats little children out past their curfew. Children's fairy tale or not, adults scattered around the parish claim that they have seen the Rougarou creeping through the brush in the dark, too. But do you know its villain origin story? South Louisiana's culture is heavily influenced by France, and the cultural legend of the Rougarou is no different. Maybe. When the Acadians were exiled from France, they brought the legend of the Loup-garou, pronounced Lougarou, so I pronounced it wrong when reading it, to Nova Scotia, and later on, Louisiana. The Cajun version of the tale was formed in our very own bayous and swamplands, eventually coming to be known as the Rougarou. And there's the wolf. It's uncontested that the Cajun Rougarou stems from the mythic loup-garou, translating to werewolf, of medieval France, but people can't decide if the two were similar or not. According to some sources, in medieval France, were scared of when adults were, I'm assuming that's scared, of dying in a sword fight or catching some such plague, children feared loup-garous. Much like today, parents back then used it as a way to get their children to follow orders. Don't want your child to play in the woods alone? Tell them a Rougarou will get them. Sticky fingers, pilfering wares? A Rougarou will get them. An innocuous habit of starting small, controlled fires? What? That's not an innocuous habit. That's terrible. Uh, well, that child was probably switched with a changeling, but a Rougarou will get them too. Let's go get the changeling.
It's almost like with opera, like you're getting money, you're getting car now. Oh,
You get a
you do this,
Rougarou. You get a
you're getting
Rougarou.
pizza tonight. you do this, you're gonna disappear tonight. It's like, yeah, that's a good way to raise a child with traumas, but that will be peeing in the dark even as an adult.
Hey, but you know what? That explains France. It's just a whole nation of trauma.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to even comment on that.
However, other sources, like Folklore Figures of French and Creole Louisiana by Nathan J. I don't even know how to, Rabelais, posit that the Middle Ages European Rougarou was greeted with casual indifference or mixed feelings, with the lore stating it resembled a larger breed of dog rather than a feared wolf like today's Cajun Rougarou. Uh, you're going to make me say the name again. Let's just say Nathan. Nathan states that the Loup-garou of medieval France bears little resemblance, in fact, to the Rougarou, despite being the Cajun creature's origin. There is, though, one account of the French Loup-garou in folklore figures that says that an aspect of the lore was the beast being shrouded in themes of punishment and scare tactics, which, if you ask me, is a very big aspect, and therefore the Rougarou is is a lot like the Rougarou, but I didn't write the book. Depending on the area of France, if a citizen was shunned by the church and didn't repent, was excommunicated from the land, or hadn't gone to confession for 10 years, they would be punished by turning into a werewolf for a set amount of time. Here's that full quote for your own interpretation. In the Middle Ages, in France, it was often believed that if any person had been denounced from the altar and remained impenitent, refused to make restitution and confess, the curse of the werewolf fell upon him. In Normandy, any man who was excommunicated became a werewolf for a term of 3 or 7 years. Why three or couldn't it be 3 to 7? 3 or 7. It's a toss up. In that word, any person who had not been shriven. What does shriven mean? Shriven.
You're
Shriven.
an American. I don't know. I'm not supposed to explain to you. It should be vice versa. Shame
Yeah,
on
no,
you.
so in if I'm going to channel my inner Serb here, I
You're
I
supposed to. That will give you
right?
energy.
Right? I don't okay, maybe shriven is like confession because it says 10 years and it said if you hadn't been to confession for 10 years. So maybe that's like a French word for confession. So if you haven't been shriven for 10 years nor used holy water, could become a werewolf. In that word, the man who was excommunicated became a werewolf for 7 years, during which he was obligated to haunt certain ill-omened and accursed spots.
Wait, does it count if you take holy coffee? I take holy coffee every day.
I see. I think that wears off the werewolf. Yeah,
Oh, dang it.
yeah.
So it has to be water.
Well, as long as it's not holy water. So don't
Oh,
don't drink it from a Keurig because that anoints the water.
okay.
There are
Duly noted.
there are more reasons given as to why a medieval Frenchman would be slammed with the Loup-garou curse, and much are the same reasons seen in southern Louisiana lore about the Rougarou. Other than scaring kids into heeding their bedtimes and staying out of places they weren't supposed to be, early Rougarou lore held threats that anyone doing practically anything seen as slightly uncouth were susceptible to the curse of the Rougarou. If you even looked a Rougarou in the eye, you'd find yourself becoming one. How does a Rougarou turn back human, though? Depending on the version of the story you read, turning back human is either easy peasy or hard to come by. Rougarou or Rougarou wise. If a Rougarou has been transformed for 101 days, he can turn back by biting a human, thus passing the curse of the Rougarou to someone else. Less commonly, you can track down a witch, and she can transform you back into a human. The most common that I've heard is using the power of confusion. Setting out 13 of the same items, usually pennies, on your doorstep not only protects you from a Rougarou, but changes them back to human, too. Rougarous cannot count over 12. There you go. See, this is just like your psoglav. They're not very intelligent.
You know what? I think I have 13 quarters that I see for the laundry, so I'm gonna use them tonight.
There you go. Got to set them out. Maybe you'll turn someone back human.
Maybe. So they don't have to go look for a witch.
So the beast will be stuck endlessly counting to 12, frustrating itself, and eventually, much like a Pokemon, hurt itself in its confusion and turn back human. If all else fails, you can also take a page out of John Winchester's book and just kill it by decapitation. Yeah, that seems to work.
Why didn't they mention that as number one? That would
Right?
be like the easiest way.
Yeah, that's number one. While the Rougarou is communally beloved by uh, Terrebonne residents for being a mostly
Are you saying
uniquely.
you don't speak French? Amber will decapitate you later.
I don't speak loser, right? So I'm sorry, I'm American. 2 world wars, bro. Scoreboard. All right. Um, okay. Uniquely Cajun cryptid, the clutches of the Bayou werewolf are rather far-reaching. A season 4 episode of Supernatural features a Rougarou the Winchester's brother have to fight. Likewise, an NCIS New Orleans episode in its 6th season has a victim killed during a hunt for the legendary creature. Even J.K. Rowling uses Rougarou hair as the core of some of the wands in Harry Potter Wizarding World. Pascal Lapasse, an Oklahoman cartoonist, used the Rougarou as one of the antagonists in her comic Wildlife. And most bizarrely to me, a roller coaster in Sandusky, Ohio's Cedar Point theme park is named the Rougarou. I saw nothing visually connecting it to the Rougarou, but I am also not a fan of roller coasters. How dare you, that's blasphemy. And possibly missing something. The Rougarou might not be real, but it certainly has us in its hairy clutches.
So it's interesting how you've been reading. You said let me see the word. The place Cajun. I thought it's Cahoon, like Cahunas.
Kahunas.
Like it goes well with werewolves and dogman. I'm like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, hey, it might be on the diet for a werewolf. We're gonna eat a large bowl of kahunas.
You survive. Maybe it works in the same way like 13 coins. You just put 13 coins, or you get kahunas from from whatever. I don't know,
Hey,
bull.
hey, David got 200 foreskins. Maybe it works.
It certainly works because his men were called Giburim, mighty men. So I think it works in a way. Okay, we for the sake of time and energy, let's keep the second Rougarou article, and let's go to King Lycaon. Okay, I like I like this Lycaon image. King Lycaon of Arcadia, the first werewolf? Question mark. Well, we'll see. Lycaon was a king of Arcadia. Mentioned in Greek mythology, he is believed to have lived in the period before the Great Deluge, and therefore was a contemporary of two other legendary kings, Deucalion of Thessaly and Cecrops or Cecrops of Athens. In Greek mythology, Lycaon is remembered as the king who was punished by the god as a consequence for his pride and impiety. Apart from this rather gruesome story, Lycaon is also known to have been the father of many sons who founded the villages and towns of Arcadia and gave them names to them. Thus, in a way, Lycaon may be considered a founder hero despite his heinous crimes that he committed. According to the Greek mythology, Lycaon was the son of Pelasgos, who is generally considered to have been the progenitor of the Pelasgians, the earliest inhabitants of Greece. According to the one version of the myth, Lycaon's mother was Meliboea, while another claims that his mother was Silene. Both figures are said to be nymphs. Okay, I'm going to skip these words in parentheses. Who inhabited Mount Silene, a mountain in the Peloponnese. It has been suggested that Maliboea and Silene may have been in fact the same figure. A third version of the myth suggests that Lycaon's mother was Dinara, something like that, similar, whose father incidentally was also named Lycaon. Lycaon is said to have many wives, and through them produced a number of offspring. In general, Lycaon is said to have fathered as many as 50 sons. Man, those are rookie numbers compared to the Old Testament. He was just beginning to extend his genealogy,
You
right?
got to pump those numbers up.
You have to, like the meme says, dude, these are rookie numbers. 50 sons, like Genghis Khan called you, and he called you a loser. So, okay. Nevertheless, the various sources differ regarding their number as well as their names. During the time of Lycaon, the region of Arcadia was known as Pelasgia in honor of its founder Pelasgus. The region was only renamed later and later on as Arcadia, excuse me, in honor of Arcas, who was a grandson of Lycaon. Arcas was the son of Callisto, a daughter of Lycaon. This is as interesting as some of genealogies. God forgive me. In the Greek mythos, Callisto was a hunting companion of the goddess Artemis and swore to preserve her virginity. This vow was eventually broken, and Callisto gave birth to Arcas. The myth ends with Callisto being transformed into a bear, hunted down, and placed into the sky as the constellation Ursa Major. Interesting. There are, however, several versions of the myth, as always. For instance, one version states that Zeus took on the guise of Artemis to seduce Callisto. Man, Zeus was like just like a bad triple X dude. In the whole Greek mythology, he was like the worst of the worst. The dude couldn't keep his pants on. I'm sorry, but like these
Yeah,
guys are like they're just like the worst of the worst people.
yeah, he's like the Loki, but not, rated M for mature.
Yeah, Zeus was a pimp. I think this perfectly describes him. For
Yeah.
instance, one version states that Zeus, the pimp, took on the guise of Artemis to seduce Callisto. When her pregnancy was revealed, Callisto naturally placed the blame on Artemis. Naturally. That's the key word. This is like Game of Thrones. It's like politicians. The goddess was not pleased at all and turned her into a bear. In another version, it was Zeus's jealous wife, Hera, who transformed Callisto into a bear after she found out about what her husband had done. The goddess then persuaded Artemis to shoot the bear. After Callisto's death, Hermes was sent by Zeus to retrieve Arcas from Callisto's womb, and the child was given the nymph Maya to be raised. Man, this is complex.
So
This is like ancient Spanish soap opera. Yeah.
so Callisto couldn't take accountability and she chose the bear.
Yeah. Like many modern, we won't say, but yeah. The myth of Lycaon, it doesn't seem like myth. It seems very realistic. I don't know. Unlike his daughter Callisto, whose demise was a consequence of the whimsiness so characteristic of the ancient Greek gods, Lycaon's downfall was the result of his own doing. Like the myth of Callisto, there are several variations to the story of Lycaon. The most famous version of this myth can be found in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Do you know, Shaun, that this is one of gazillion books I have that I still didn't read? Metamorphoses. It's so thick. It has so many cool stories, and I never read any story. That's shame on me. I just need time and to schedule an episode on it, and then I'll start reading. In this version, Zeus reported to the rest of the gods that an infamous report of his unholy age had reached his ears, and hoping that it would prove to be false, the king of the gods decided to visit the world in human form. As night approached, Zeus arrived in Arcadia and revealed himself as a god to the people. While the Arcadians prayed and worshipped Zeus, only Lycans mocked their pious vows and said that a fair experiment will prove the truth if this be god or man. Lycan intended to kill Zeus during his sleep and served human flesh to the god during a meal. According to Ovid, quote, he cut the throat of a Molossian hostage sent to him and partly softened his still quivering limbs in boiling water, partly roasted them on fires that burned beneath, end quote. The dish was served to Zeus, but the god, aware of the trick Lycan was trying to play on him, was furious and destroyed his house with thunderbolts. As for the evil king, Zeus had him transform into a wolf. Quote, terror struck, he took to flight, and on the silent plains is howling in his vain attempts to speak. He raves and rages, and his greedy jaws, desiring their accustomed slaughter, turn against the sheep, still eager for their blood. His vesture separates in shaggy hair. His arms are changed to legs, and as a wolf, he has the same gray locks, the same hard face, the same bright eyes, the same ferocious look. End quote. Man, this is a very good depiction, by the way. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the image, the painting is called "A Lycaon Transformed into a Wolf" by Henrik, whatever. Dude, why all these famous people have to have complex last names? I don't know why. At the end of the tale, Ovid had Zeus's remark, quote, thus fell one house, but one house alone deserved to perish. Over all the earth ferocious deeds prevail. One man conspire in evil. Let them therefore feel the weight of dreadful penalties so justly earned. For such hath my unchanging will ordained. Hath was Zeus speaking in King James? What is this?
Yeah, even Zeus speaks King James.
Yeah,
it's known.
I think it was Zeus's famous quotation that he says that he can use King James to correct Koine Greek.
Yeah, no.
That was used to write Greek mythology. So by using King James Bible, they can go and change the Greek mythology Greek text.
Yeah, amen, brother.
Yeah, if Zeus said it, it must be true. No doubt Ovid intended to warn his readers against committing evil lest they suffer divine justice. And now, of course, there are variations of this Lycaon myth. Okay, in one version, Lycaon's 50 sons are provided the names of each of them. No, thank you, because we have life and we need to sleep. I'm not reading 50 names of his sons, and no one cares. In any case, the sons of Lycaon are said to have quote, exceeded all men in pride and in piety, end quote. This, honestly, some of these stories reminds me of the Old Testament, especially those idolaters and hard-necked kings who constantly disobeyed God in the Old Testament. When we read First and Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles, but it also reminds me a little bit also of Genesis 6, these generations were so proud and were so rebellious and full with impiety, and thus God had to do some business of punishing them. So Zeus was also punishing Lycaon, as it says here in the text, for his pride and impiety. But you know what? This is hilarious. Zeus, again, was a pimp. He was like an epitome of debauchery. So now he's going and punishing someone who is like almost on the same level like him, but I don't even think he was as bad as Zeus, Lycaon. So it's like, this is so funny. Like, who are you to judge someone who's not even as bad as you are? With these pagan deities, it's so funny because they just represent like human politicians, human gangs, like the worst of us, like just people who go to orgies, drink wine, just live like there is no tomorrow. It's funny.
So yes, Zeus was a pimp, but he was also the OG. And in his defense, King Lycaon tried to step to Zeus, and so Zeus had to smack him. I can't say that on your podcast. Yeah, he had to smack a wolf.
Anyway, the sons of Lycaon offered him hospitality, and having slaughtered a male child of the natives, they mixed his bowels with the sacrifices and set them before him as the instigation of the elder brothers Mainalos. Needless to say, Zeus knew what they did and was furious and blasted Lycaon and his sons by thunderbolts. Only the youngest son, Nyctimus, was spared, as Gaia was quick enough to lay hold of the right hand of Zeus and so appease his wrath. So 49 boys died, but the youngest one survived. Again, this is like similar to the biblical stories where the youngest one had some bright future ahead of him. It was this boy, Nyctimus, who succeeded Lycaon as king, and it was during his reign that the great deluge occurred. which some say was Zeus's punishment for the impiety of Lycaon's sons. It may be added that in some versions of the myth, Nyctimus is said to be the one whom Lycaon slaughtered and prepared as a meal for Zeus. So again, depending on the version of the story. Okay, here we
So
see.
he either survived or he was served.
Yeah, it's either S or S, screwed or either or. Not a big difference, Sean.
No, not at all.
No, no. A similar word. Yet another version of the myth is found in this text called Description of Greece, which was written during the 2nd century AD. The story provided by the author is quite different from the ones already mentioned. For instance, this author makes no mention about Lycaon's pride or impiety. In addition, he does not mention anything about Lycaon serving cooked human flesh to Zeus. Instead, it was the human sacrifice. Well, maybe Zeus was vegan in this story. We're about to find out. I don't know. Instead, it was the human sacrifice that the king performed that incurred Zeus's wrath. Lycaon brought a human baby to the altar of Zeus Lycus and sacrificed it, pouring out its blood upon the altar. And according to the legend, immediately after the sacrifice, he was changed from a man to wolf. Therefore, it may be said that Lycaon's crime, according to this version of the myth, was his unfortunate choices of sacrifice to the gods. I'm sorry, it's not unfortunate choice, because Aztecs did the same thing. Today is also done for the sake of choice, right? We won't go there. It's not an unfortunate. It's not a coincidence. It's not like, I just had a bad day. I did this by mistake. No, this is planned. It doesn't happen by mistake or just like, oh, bad luck. No. As a comparison, this author mentions Cecrops, the king of Athens, who was a contemporary of Lycaon, and the type of sacrifice he instituted. This is the quotation. My view is that Lycaon was contemporary with Cecrops, the king of Athens, but that they were not equally wise in matters of religion. For Cecrops was the first to name Zeus Hypatos, which means the supreme god in Greek, and refused to sacrifice anything that had life in it. Man, this dude was wise. But burned instead on the altar the national cakes, which the Athenians still call pelanoi. And they were like, there's so many more images and much more text left in this article. And but I just don't see any further need to keep reading because it's a lot. Okay, I'll end here. By the end of this article, I'll end here, even though I prepared another article on King Lycaon, but this one is a very long, so I'll stop here. So now there's this question. Was King Lycaon the first werewolf? Well, let's see what this author of the article thinks. Another interesting aspect about Lycaon was found in Pausanias's description of Greece, is his association to the king of lycanthropy or werewolfism. Incidentally, the word werewolf is derived from Old English and literally means man-wolf. Nevertheless, Lycaon is often considered to be one of the earliest examples of this phenomenon. So it says one of, it doesn't say the first. The story of man being transformed into a wolf is also found in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is regarded as the oldest surviving piece of literature in human history. In this epic, this hero, Gilgamesh, refuses the advances of the goddess Ishtar, as he knew that she turned one of her previous lovers into a wolf. As already mentioned, Lycaon's transformation into a wolf is found in both Ovid's and Pausanias versions of the Greek myth. Nevertheless, the latter has some additional information regarding this subject. Pausanias's document states that ever since the time of Lycaon, a man has changed into a wolf at a sacrifice to Zeus Lycios, but that the change is not for life. If when he's a wolf, he abstains from human flesh, after 9 years he becomes a man again, but if he tastes human flesh, he remains a beast forever. So it's a type of a curse. Like in modern pop culture, werewolves are basically people that are cursed, or maybe shapeshifters that shamans and witch doctors can go through through magical rituals and whatever they do, but they very soon go back to their original human likeness and flesh. So this dude, Pausanias, however, seems skeptical about this story, and he says that all throughout the ages, many events have been occurred in the past, and even some that occur today have been generally discredited because of the lies built up on a foundation of fact. This is actually a very cool image of a werewolf. Um, yeah, and that's basically the end of this article. I skip one article when it comes to Rougarou. I'm skipping another article when it comes to King Lycaon because it's a lot. Whew. I feel just little sad that we didn't cover that supposed first wolf transformation in the history of the human history, especially when it comes to myth and religion about Gilgamesh. That could have been like actually the first example, but if King Lycaon wasn't the first, then he was certainly something like the second example in the history. Number one, have you heard anything about or read that Gilgamesh, this story about Gilgamesh and goddess Ishtar and how she was turning her former lovers into wolves? That will be the first question. And the second, what will be your concluding thoughts?
So yeah, I have read the Epic of Gilgamesh, but I don't really remember that part. It's been a while since I've read it, so that might inspire me to go and read it again. Um, let's see. Concluding thoughts here. Uh, I think that the idea of a man turning into a wolf, it has basically been with us since the very beginning of people telling stories. I think it has to do with the understanding that that man is a rational animal and is has placed himself in opposition to the beasts, and the wolf, especially the lone wolf, represents the most bestial aspect of nature, and maybe the most dangerous. And interestingly, they're fairly close to humans as far as, their hunting instinct and their reasoning. So it's not like it's a dumb animal. A wolf is very intelligent, but I think that's why it's so dangerous, is because it's so intelligent. And so it's conceivable that a human could turn into a wolf because they're not just dumb creatures. They're smart. They're thinking creatures. Um, and so yeah, I think that this has a lot to do with this polarity that we have of setting ourselves apart from the animals, and maybe that fear that if we lose our humanity, whatever it is that makes us human, that image of God that we talked about again, then we might descend into this bestial world and become like the wolf. That being said, I'm not necessarily saying that it's all metaphorical. There could very well be some reality to at least what what we're saying. I mean, like I brought up before, the dogman, and you had Mindy on the show talking about her dogman experience. So I'm someone who believes that those things can happen, but what is the reason that it's kind of stuck with us and hasn't just been um some obscure legend of some creature, but has almost taken on its own status in literature as a trope. And I think that has to do with that polarity between man and beast, and the understanding that if we lose our humanness, then we would become the most fearsome beast with no compassion.
Well, that was a wonderful concluding to this very interesting podcast that was filled with humor, with cryptids, with talking about the image of God. And by the way I tried to explain very imperfectly how I envision, even though I don't know much about that biblical topic of the image of God. Amber called me agnostic. So, well, you're welcome, Amber. If I'm agnostic, then I guess I can live with that. But yeah, that being said, we'll see you this Sunday at 6 p.m. with Pastor Anthony and with Doug, who's coming back. Well, both of them are coming back. They're not new to the podcast. We'll be talking about the expanded version of The Unseen Realm by the late Dr. Heiser. So this book came out exactly 10 years after the first edition. So we'll be only covering the new notes, the new additions to this version of the book. Again, The Unseen Realm, which has like 550 pages. This coming this Sunday again, 6 p.m. Central Time with Pastor Anthony and with Doug. Next Friday, Shaun and I will come up with some other bizarre topic, most probably. And yeah, we're getting very close to episode 200. And because we'll be talking about Dr. Heiser, and this channel was greatly inspired to even start because of him, I will name this coming Sunday episode into an episode 200, because I wanted to, like, in a way, honor him and also portray a way of a, if I can call it, a jubilee or anniversary on the podcast that I also did with the episode 100. I remember I skipped 99, I did 98, and then 100, and I did 99. So we'll do episode 200 this Sunday, and then Shaun and I will do 199 next Friday. That being said, please subscribe, like, share this comment. Share this material, and also we may be soon starting using audio podcasts to not to fully switch. YouTube will stay #1 platform, but when I learn how to transfer or convert video files into audio files, we may start using audio podcast soon, because of people asking for it, and also some other people recommending to start using that platform as well, meaning a lot of more work. So pray for me, pray for us, because we need a lot of energy, God's guidance, wisdom, and honestly, it's also easy to give up. It's also easy to approach something like this also, I don't know how to say, as a hobby. When people tell me, they can be from my work or from church, something about, oh, you do this, and they see it as a hobby, I tell them, listen, I know we have sometimes crazy topics on the podcast, but this is not a hobby. I don't do it as a hobby. I have board games, tons of them here in the corner. People can see. These are a hobby. Podcast is not a hobby. Podcast is a very imperfect ministry unto the Lord. And yes, we also laugh. We cover a lot of pop culture stuff. Not everything is literally the ministry, but because we compare everything to the preeminency of Jesus and his gospel, then in that way it is a ministry. So please keep us in prayer, because we need energy, we need wisdom, we need to organize, we need to think all of this, including how to switch to our video files, 200 of them, to the audio platform. So I still didn't open an account. I'm still thinking about that during this weekend. I also work Saturdays all day. So yeah, I will need to see how to work that out. And when we have news, we're gonna make it public. And hopefully for people who don't watch videos or don't like, it's easier for them just to click and listen, something like a radio. It will be audio podcast. Then this will be good news for them. But yeah, that being said, thank you for being with us. Thank you also for our friends for all these amazing and funny live chats. Our podcast would not be the same. Our ministry would not be the same if we wouldn't have this wonderful feedback from people that we know or don't know. So thank you. We love you. God bless you. And we'll see you in less than 48 hours. Take care.